Shalom, shalom. First, I'd like to give all praises unto YAHAWAH, YAHAWASHI, QADASH, and double honors unto the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and honors to you brothers out there in the highways and the byways teaching this word in all sincerity and in truth. Now, you still got these scoffers and scorners who can't grasp the understanding that these other nations are going into slavery. And when you really break it down, they're going into perpetual slavery. And if you replace the word slavery with servitude, then maybe that'll make you understand it a bit better. Because maybe the term slavery triggers your emotions. But there are different levels and forms of slavery. First and foremost, these other nations are going to go into hardcore slavery as a form of punishment, right? So they're going to be going to hardcore slavery. They're going to be under punishment. Like when they put Jake in jail, they say you're about to do hard time. Well, these other nations are about to do hard time. This is Psalms 149 and 5. It says, "Let the saints be joyful in glory. Let them sing aloud upon their beds. Let the high praises of God be in their mouth and a two-edged sword in their hand, to execute vengeance upon the heathen and punishments upon the people, to bind their kings with chains and their nobles with fetters of iron, to execute upon them the judgment written. This honor have all his saints. Praise ye the Lord." So they're going to be under hardcore slavery, under punishment. They're going to be receiving pain, all right, suffering, and being cursed, all right. And that's going to be their judgment until such a time as their transgressions have been paid for. But even then, after that, they're still going to be servants unto us. Now, certain of them are going to be perpetual bondmen for our vineyards among us. Right, certain of them are going to be perpetually among us as servants, because we're always going to have servants on our person of the other nations. But many of them will release out of hardcore slavery, and they're going to go back to their lands, their inheritances, but they're still going to be servants unto us, meaning they're going to be in a form of vassalage. They're going to be vassals, and they're going to pay us tithes. They're going to pay tribute as being our servants, just like the nations paid us tributes back during the time of David. Here's an example. 2 Samuel 8:2, "And he smote Moab and measured them with a line, casting them down to the ground. Even with 2 lines measured he to put to death, and the 1 line to keep alive. And so the Moabites became David's servants and brought gifts," tributes. So David still allowed the Moabites to dwell in their land, but they had to pay tribute. And if David had any request of them, then obviously they had to fulfill that request. So there's different levels of servitude. So at first they're going to be under that punishment, but once that punishment is meted out, you can go to Isaiah. It tells you about where is it? Isaiah the 14. That's it. Isaiah 14. See, the only nations that's not going to become a vassal to the nation of Israel is Esau, Edom, because they're going to be completely destroyed after the punishment. This is Isaiah 14. And 18, it says, "All the kings of the nations," right? Because these other nations, they're going to have their own kings and their own thrones. But those thrones are going to be under the thrones of David. "All the kings of the nations, even all of them, lie in glory, every one in his own house." Now, what does it mean by his own house? Because the Lord has divided unto all nations their inheritance. So in the kingdom of heaven, after the punishment has been applied and Jerusalem has been built up, these nations are going to be afforded their previous inheritances that was given unto them by the Most High. You know, every nation has their inheritance, except one nation, which is the nation of Edom. They're going to be completely destroyed, and their inheritance is going to be converted to Judah. And that's explained in the book of the Numbers, the 23rd chapter, I believe. All right. But it says, but thou, meaning Esau, Edom, art cast out of thy grave like an abominable branch, and as the raiment of those that are slain, thrust through with a sword, that go down to the stones of the pit, as a carcass trodden on the feet. Thou shalt not be joined with them in burial. That represents when these nations come out of punishment, and they, you know, we release many of them back to their lands to rebuild their lands. Because thou hast destroyed thy land and slain thy people, the seed of evildoers shall never be renowned. Right? And that's really talking about ultimately Esau, Edom, right? Now, what backs that up again is the book of Deuteronomy 32 and 8. It says, when the Most High divided to the nations their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel. For the Lord's portion is his people. Jacob is the lot of his inheritance. All right. He said when he divided to the nations their inheritance, every nation received their inheritance, their lands, including the nation of Israel. Okay. Now, like I said, these nations, it is their natural and rightful and righteous state to be vassals or servants unto the nation of Israel. All right. It's a good thing. There's no evil in it. In fact, let me give you the definition of the word vassal. Now, not only do we have a right to have these heathens as bondmen, but their nations are to be vassals unto our king. The word vassal, it says, is a person or country in a subordinate position to another. These other nations are supposed to be in a subordinate position. It's not about equality. Israel was never meant to be equal or under all nations. Our rightful birthright is to be royal, is to be above. Okay? And that's literal. That's a literal birthright. Every Israelite man, right, has a right to rule and have authority over the other nations. Right now, because of the curses, we don't have that. But through YAHAWASHI, we're going to receive that birthright. Right now, all you got to do is go to Numbers. No, sorry. What am I talking about? Numbers. Nah, that's madness. Genesis 27, man. Genesis 27. And the blessing which was given unto Jacob, man. Just read the scriptures. Right? Now, where is it? Oh, you know, that's evil. No, read the scriptures, man. It was righteous. Let's get straight to the point. Fuck Esau, man. We're gonna show you. You Israelites out there, man. This is the information that you gotta know. All right, so all right, let's get the blessing of Jacob. It says, this is the blessing which was given unto our forefather Jacob, which was an extension of the blessing this was given unto his father Isaac and Abraham. Because remember, it was said of Abraham, kings shall come from thee. Those kings were talking about the Israelites. All right, Genesis 27 and 28. Therefore God give thee the dew of heaven and the fatness of the earth. That's why the Israelite women are, anyway. Anyway, inside joke. The fatness, yeah. The fatness of the earth, plenty of corn and wine. Right, so we would have lands blessed, all that. And you can read about that in Deuteronomy 20, chapter 1 to 14. Let people serve thee. You see? Let the other people, let them serve, be vassals, be subordinate. And nations bow down to thee. What's that? Vassalage. So all these nations are supposed to be our vassals. Their kings are supposed to be like Hiram. how Hiram was with Solomon. Solomon had many kings. Solomon had an empire where many kings were vassals unto him. Many of them were brought into vassalage by David through war, and many gave themselves up to vassalage. It tells you that in the scripture. Through the wisdom of Solomon, many nations gave themselves over to that vassalage. If that's even a word, but I'm making it a word. How about that, Esau? Vassalage. Let's look that up, because if it don't exist, it does now. Vassalage. Okay, it's a word. I'll allow you. I thought I invented a word just now. And that's my right to do that. I can do that, yeah? I can invent words. Fuck Esau. Right. Let people serve thee and nations bow down to thee. Be Lord over thy brethren, and let thy mother's sons bow down to thee. You see? So all the other Hebrews, because you got the Hebrew Israelites, but you got the Hebrew Edomites, the Hebrew Ishmaelites, all the other Hebrews, they're vassals unto us. Yeah? Let thy mother's sons bow down to thee. Cursed be everyone that curseth thee. So anyone that violate, it's a natural law that anyone that violates Israel is built into the fabric of the universe. It's a law. You see, when they in school, they tell you about the laws of physics, the laws. That's a law built into the universe, that anyone that violate and disrespect and curse Israel, instantly, action, reaction, you put a curse upon yourself. Now, these other nations don't realize it, because you see, it didn't happen instantly, but it has to balance itself. That's the righteousness. It's gonna have to, but the equation will always balance itself. Yeah, cursed be everyone that curseth thee, and blessed be he that blesseth thee. Meaning, if you obey us and do that which is right by us, then you're gonna get blessed in terms of you too will enjoy your part in paradise, because ultimately all these other nations are gonna be in paradise with us. Yeah, because where is paradise? Earth. To enjoy the fruits of earth is paradise. And these other nations, the time will come. They got to go through hardcore slavery and punishment first. But the time will come when they will enjoy Idan. But only through subjection and obedience to the chosen ones, to the royal ones, which is us. Except Esau. Esau ain't ever going to enjoy Idan. Esau gonna be dead. All right, and that. Okay, so, and I wanted to get this scripture that you can always go back to the law to understand the mind of the Lord in terms of his intention, because the law is not wicked. And see, that's the problem, man. People that's why the Christians try and violate the law, because the law was the Lord's moral code. You understand? It's a moral code. It's the Lord determining what is right and what is wrong. Right? Now, I've got news for you. Slavery in itself and servitude in itself isn't neither evil nor good. You have to apply the law, because there's slavery in righteousness and there's slavery in wickedness. Right? What Esau did to us was in wickedness, because we're not supposed to be slaves onto no other nations. That's a gross corruption and error in the earth. All right, these other nations are supposed to serve us like the cattle serve us. Yeah, like the ox. Now you might, we're all human. Yeah, they are men, and they are above the animals, but they're gonna serve us like the animals do. Because just as they are above the ox, we are above them. They were made to be beasts of burden for our will. Whether you wanna listen. Anyway, let's get this scripture here from Paul, because Paul, you don't get more Christian than Paul, do you? How can you be more Christian than Paul? You can't, can you? Yeah? Paul written most of the epistles and letters in the New Testament. So who gonna argue with Paul? You gonna argue with Paul? Okay, so you ain't gonna argue with Paul, right? What did Paul say? Wherefore the law is holy. You see, the man has invented many moral codes for themselves. Scripture says there's a way which seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof is destruction. Men have invented to themselves many moral codes. You go throughout the nations, this man will tell you this is right, this is wrong, this is right, this is wrong. You get me? Got a next man yamming up rat, next man and yam up the seafood, you know what I'm saying, the lobster. Next man think that having sex with a next man's wife is right, and what kind of madness? There's, you know what I'm saying? There's all kind of madness. Now they're telling you that being a batty man is right, and a whole heap of madness here. This is why the law is holy, because the law is the right way. It's separate from all the other filth and foolishness. Yeah, the law is the right way. When you read in that law, there's a lot you can learn from that law. You understand? And we're going to learn. We're going to learn today. Wherefore the law is holy and the commandment holy and just. You want to talk about justice? The law is just. Remember that. Paul is saying the law is just. There's no injustice in the law. When the scripture says that a man that murder another man, that he shall be put to death, that's justice. You see? Now, we can't go around doing that right now because we're all guilty of the law. So if we had to start but it doesn't mean that it's not justice though. It's just and good. So everything which is in the law is good. A man can have more than one wife. According to the law, it's not unjust. You see? We brought out the law on grape. That's a just law. Mans get all emotional about, oh, there's laws about stoning unruly sons, burning adulterous daughters. That's all just and good. These things, the Lord really intended us to live like that and to bless us for doing it. People forget that, because so then basically by not understanding that, you are taken away from the mind of the Most High, what the Most High think. And then you go about establishing your own righteousness, and you basically trying to put your mind into the mind of the Most High, rather than learning about the Lord by his word and what the Lord say. You understand? Now, Paul co-signed the law. He said the law is holy. He said the law is just and the law is good. So let's go back about slavery. Yeah, listen, slavery is a good thing on many levels. No, you're going crazy. No, there's different types of slavery, man, and it's governed in the law. So let's get the law on a Hebrew slave. Hold on. Right. Exodus 21:2. If thou buy an Hebrew servant, 6 years he shall serve. So you could buy a Hebrew servant. That's just. And in the 7th he shall go out free for nothing. If he came in by himself, he shall go out by himself. And if he were married, then his wife shall go out with him. Just, righteous, good. If his master have given him a wife, and she have borne him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be her master's, and he shall go out by himself. Just. And if the servant shall plainly say, I love my master, my wife, and my children, and will not go free, then his master shall bring him unto the judges. He shall also bring him to the door or unto the doorpost, and his master shall bore his ear through with an awl, and he shall serve him forever. Right? These are laws on slavery. Now, let's get some more laws, because you see, I went into it at camp. There's certain times where you put yourself into slavery to boost your prospects. All right, let's get that. 1 second, let me get that. Right, it says, this is Deuteronomy 15 and 12. It says, if thy brother an Hebrew man or a Hebrew woman be sold unto thee and serve thee 6 years, then in the 7th year thou shalt let him go free from thee. So this man would serve you as a slave, as a servant. Yeah? And when thou sendest him out free, meaning the word servant or slave just means you work for someone, man. Right? You got bond servants, you got hired servants, you're still servant, man. And when thou sendest him out free from thee, thou shalt not let him go away empty. Thou shalt furnish him liberally out of thy flock, and out of thy floor, and out of thy winepress, and that wherewith the Lord thy God hath blessed thee, thou shalt give unto him. And thou shalt remember that thou wast a bondman in the land of Egypt, and the Lord thy God redeemed thee. Therefore I command thee this day. Right, and then it goes into the out. Now, what about another nation? All right, let me show you something. All right, so let's get this, man. Now, let's hit this. So Leviticus 25 and 39. If thy brother that dwelleth by thee, the Hebrew, be waxen poor and be sold unto thee, thou shalt not compel him to serve as a bondservant, but as a hired servant. Yeah? And as a sojourner he shall be with thee, and shall serve thee unto the year of Jubilee. And then shall he depart from thee, both he and his children with him, and shall return unto his own family, and unto the possession of his fathers shall he return. For they are my servants. Who's that? The Israelites, yeah? Which are brought forth out of the land of Egypt. They shall not be sold as bondmen. So Israelites, according to the law, an Israelite man or woman should not be sold as a bondman. Right? We should never be in perpetual slavery. We should always return to our inheritance and our status as sovereigns. Yeah? Thou shalt not rule over him with rigor, but shalt fear thy God. Both thy bondmen and thy bondmaids, male and female, right? Man and woman that are bondmen and bondmaids, which thou shalt have. See, the Most High saying, yeah, you can have this, shall be of the heathen that are round about you. Of them ye shall buy bondmen and bondmaids. So as you can see in the law, there is a difference between the servitude of a Hebrew and the servitude of the other nations. Other nations can be bond slaves, and the Hebrews got a whole different thing going on. Why is that? Why is that? The reason is because the Most High made it to be that way. There is a difference between the Israelites and the other nations. We are the royal people. We are his servants. You other nations are our servants. And that's just how it's going to be. And you can understand that by simply reading the law. Because the law puts a difference between a Hebrew and a heathen when it comes to servitude. And you can't get around it. Both thy bondmen and thy bondmaids, which thou shalt have, shall be of the heathen that are round about you. See? We're not supposed to have Hebrews as bondmen and bondwomen, but we can have you other nations. Why? Because it's just and it's good. Why? Because you were created for that purpose. Just like the cattle, just like the ox. Right? Now, you ain't got to believe it right now because obviously you hurt in it. But we're here to be justified by YAHAWAH, SHAM, YAHAWASHI, and not your feelings on what the fuck you believe. So it is what it is. Shalom.